All right, folks, listen, it's mid-May, and this is the time that people start thinking about like mini camp, upcoming training camp in 2 months, the June 1st front office roster moves, and a lot of other stuff. But it's 2020, and we are still in the midst of a pandemic. We're going to call, we're basically just, we have a lot to kind of think of and to contemplate. And we're going to do this all here at the BKBK podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Phillips, and we're here with fellow co-hosts Brian Taylor, Captain Kyle McKenna, and Kerry Idris Elba. That's right, looking all good over there. Check that out.
A little less Idris today.
A little less Idris. He's just...
Wait, have you seen Idris lately?
Oh, you guys are running parallel? Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
You guys have the same COVID look?
You know what?
He had COVID. What's your excuse?
I shouldn't even said anything.
I just want to point out that I have no mustache anymore, and it's all because of Brandon's boy Big Green coming out and saying that I needed to lose the mustache. That my analysis is good, but I really need to lose the mustache.
Wow.
Big Green,
that was a YouTube comment.
Wow.
Really?
Wow.
And so I just wanted to give all the credits due to Big Green, who is that his name, Brandon? Big Green?
I think it's Big Green. Yeah. That's his identity under YouTube. Yeah.
Wow.
All credit due to Big Green. That's the only reason I shave my mustache is because.
But Big Green, you got my partner over here looking like a newborn baby. What are you doing, man? Come on, gee whiz.
Wow.
I'm looking forward to the handlebar.
Hey man, if I could roll back some of these wrinkles too, that would be a good thing. I got like the smile lines and stuff like that. So.
No, you're good, Kyle. Those glasses make you look professorial as well, man. So you good, bro.
I'm the John Clayton of the crew, right?
Yeah. Why not?
Looking like milk.
Oh,
my bad. I was sitting here thinking it like, oh no, was it an egg or the milk? I was thinking breakfast. I'm sorry.
Yes. And you're thinking high school humor. It's all good.
Yeah.
We all grew up together.
We're so juvenile.
Yeah, totally. Well, listen, we're coming off a high, as most Jet fans would categorize it, considering that we had a pretty successful draft. Wouldn't you guys say that?
I mean, that's not what a lot of people thought initially until we chopped it up and broke it down and dissected it.
I concur without a doubt. But I go ahead, Kyle.
I also think that the so-called experts also feel that way. I mean, I haven't really seen any of the pundits really talk about the Jets having a bad draft. I think there's just degrees of how good it was. I mean, if you look at McShay's write-up, he thinks we did everything right for the most part with steals
except for the backup
late
QB.
rounds.
Except for the backup QB, right?
Did he not like he didn't like the backup QB pick?
If he did like it, I think he thought that we got him too early.
Well, he had COVID during the draft, right?
He actually did. He actually did. He did have COVID during the draft. That's why he wasn't part of it. Yep.
Well, I found that to be crazy, considering like dudes like Mel Kiper and Todd McShay, they lived their whole life for 3 days.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then that gets ripped from them. That's really unfortunate for McShay.
Yeah, that's tough.
And I remember being like, "Yo, what's up? Where's Todd?" I find it interesting, people that are getting COVID from being in quarantine. Like they're not even going out and they're not even interacting. People still getting it, but that's
it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going out at all. I mean, you can go to the grocery store, pharmacy, blah blah blah, and still end up getting it that way too.
And you have family members as well. So it's hard. It just lessens the odds, but it's still going to happen. Just hopefully it happens less and less and less.
Well, I guess we'll talk about that later when we talk about
absolutely
the season and stuff like that.
But you know what?
I do want to point out regarding the draft, since we touched upon it. There was a line of thought that, well, maybe we should have gotten at least one more wide receiver out of this draft.
Sure.
And most of us felt like we that was on our wish list. But I didn't kill them for that, for the reasons that I pointed out when we had our last podcast. But what I do want to point out is the developments that have occurred since is the fact that Christian Inwa is gone for the year. So that's an issue.
Yeah.
That's an issue.
Is that something we're going to unpack later, Brandon? Your favorite phrase, or are we, or is that part of this segment? I just want to know if we're going to go in on that.
I've already gotten that phrase trademarked, so you can't say it without my permission unless you hand it over.
Oops, I'll drop you a quarter in the mail, man. I'll drop you a quarter in the mail.
3P. It's the new 3P.
You know? Well, you know what? Why don't we start it off like this? Let's start it off under a bigger umbrella, okay? Because my concerns, because we're talking about the NFL, we're talking about football, but also we're talking about COVID. And I want to know, like, are we nervous yet, or are we starting to get nervous yet that there will be a 2020 NFL football season?
I feel confident that there's going to be a season. It's probably going to start out with no fans in the seats. I think that's probably how it's going to start. My concern from a New York Jet perspective is that the offseason is not going to be the offseason we need to have.
Right.
With the amount of additions that we are bringing in free agency wise and the draft and, you know, Gase in there and Darnold, I'm just concerned about that development, which right now you're talking about mini camps that should be going on potentially during this period of time. Rookie mini camp would have already transpired, and then an additional mini camp that the veterans would have participated in that is going to happen virtually now. I don't even know what that means.
I don't even know what that means.
Right? Well, is it a Zoom meeting like we're doing right now, and everybody's just in their separate spaces and doing stuff? There's nothing about bringing the team together, camaraderie and stuff like that you build with all these new additions that you can't do at this point in time.
You can't even get used to the way like your own quarterback delivers the football.
Sure.
You know, it's tough, and it's those little nuanced things that really help. I mean, that could be the difference between a touchdown and an interception. Just having, like you were saying, building relationships, building playing relationships,
the rapport,
and the rapport. And it's like a little thing like, oh no, he tends to throw it like this. I'm going to position my body like this on this DB. Touchdown, Brandon Phillips. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Never.
So,
well, never.
Nunca.
I think that we are kind of underestimating the ingenuity of some of our roster, of the Jets roster, and I think that, you know, as we get closer to full opening up and things like that, Sam Darnold's going to be having people out to see him, and they're going to be working out together, and they're going to be doing some stuff, under the radar, off the books.
Yeah.
I definitely think that's going to happen, and whether we know about it or not. In addition to that, like just working in kind of like the public sector with all the things that I do on a day-to-day, it's hard to say that anybody really knows what's going to happen.
Sure.
Because the phased implementation of things, if it goes all the way to the letter of the law, and I'm not talking about like the ones that have accelerated, the states that have accelerated and stuff like that. If you go to the letter of the law and you start thinking, okay, maybe July 1st, we might be able to have gatherings of over 50 people or around 50 people. I think that the NFL set a precedent when they had the draft so successfully with no fans there.
They did.
Now, granted, it was a process that turned into a spectator sport. It had no fans at it when it first started. When I went to the draft in 1991 was the first one, 1990, at the Marriott Marquis in Times Square, there was 500 people that they let in total. And they were all in the balcony of it. So I think that the NFL kind of set the tone, along with what the UFC did last weekend, that as long as there's a way for us to watch it on TV or whatever,
sure,
we're going to be in some way satisfied with what we're getting.
Oh, we're going to be all over it, dude. I mean, you know, we're going to be all over it. I can't wait to watch any sport at this point in time. I mean, I was up at 2 a.m. watching Japanese baseball. It's crazy, man. I just, it's going to be sad when The Last Dance is over, this week, this Sunday and stuff, the last 2 episodes, because I'm like, what other sports type of thing am I going to be able to watch for a while?
Just to comment on what you were saying, Kyle. I mean, and I agree with you up to a point. And why I'm saying up to a point is basically because for us to put a product out on the field, for us to watch with, under modern technology, you still have to bring it back to the basics. People still need to be able to gather to give the public that product and to, I would gather and say every NFL organization has a lot more than 50 employees. I was able to visit because I was filming some stuff with the Cleveland Browns back in 2015, and I was there at their headquarters. A lot more than 50 people. You know what I'm saying? And you're going to need all these people working to achieve one goal, and that's to put out the best product that you can. So that may hinder it somewhat. Things that you and I can't see on a daily basis. And I'm hoping that they're able to work through that. And what's giving me hope is, the UFC, Kyle, I know you and I big MMA fans. The UFC was able to put out their product, and they were the first major organization to pull together and to do that for UFC 249. And they did have to take one fight away because one of them did test positive, but they did have a system installed as far as how to, make sure that the fighters were either not infected, or if they were, that they were quickly removed from the card. And then also the people around it, the press, reporters, staff, this and that, they all stayed at a hotel. There were multiple testings at the hotel. And then they were not allowed to self-report to the arena. So everyone that tested free and clear, then the UFC got them like transportation. They all rode on the same bus. So you couldn't, if you weren't tested multiple times and you weren't tested as negative multiple times, you couldn't get on this bus. And then it brought a clean staff and press to the arena. So now, in theory, everyone there is COVID free. So maybe the NFL can kind of take notes on something like that, on how they implemented it, and it was pretty successful. But I know Kerry and I were talking off camera, and
let me address that. But before I address that, let me address what we were initially discussing. These training camps and how they will impact, how they play the game. How the end product, right? Sure. So everybody's in the same situation. All of the 32 teams are in the same situation. So it's not like one team is going to have an advantage over the other in terms of how training camps are going to be conducted, in terms of, how often the rookies will be able to work with the rest of the team. So I'm not as concerned about that. I am concerned about how Darnold is going to, sort of mesh with the new receiving core that he's going to have. He's just not going to have Robbie Anderson there. And he really, the only full-time receiver he's going to have is, who's the slot? I can't remember his name right now.
Crowder.
Is Crowder. So, he's got to develop a relationship with Mims. He's got to, get on the same page with Le'Veon Bell, get on the same page with his coach. I'm more concerned about that specifically. Now, the other thing that I wanted to point out is, how are these games going to be played when it comes to the regions that are significantly impacted as opposed to the regions that aren't? So New York State, state of California, state of Washington, when they have home games, how's that going to play out? When you have, guidelines in place that aren't as restrictive as the guidelines that are in Green Bay, or the guidelines that are in, St. Louis, the country, St. Louis, Missouri. So that's where I feel like there's going to be a.
Pardon me, St. Louis no longer has an NFL team, so my bad with that one. St. Louis no longer has an NFL team, but I get your point.
Taking it back to the greatest show on turf.
Yeah.
Now go ahead. So, and to your point, Kerry, facilities are able to open May 19th, and the New York facilities will not be one of them.
Right, and that, right. So you're absolutely making my point. And how is that going to impact the Jets? How is that going to impact Washington Redskins? How is that going to impact the LA teams? You know,
New
that's going
England
to be a
Patriots.
problem. That's going to, who cares about the Patriots?
Yeah.
But that's going to be that's going to be a problem.
You got to think about too, like, if you are the Patriots, you've lost a huge part of your continuity. So whatever they're going to be doing is going to need a lot of work too. I'm gonna throw out just a bottom line thing, and this is kind of my bottom line for the state of football in general before COVID-19. When people say it's like the game in trouble, are they going to take away the game of football as we know it or whatever? And I think it all comes down to one thing: insurance. Are you able to insure the game? Are there insurance companies that will underwrite the liability that comes along with it? So, that's one thing when we talk about head injuries and things like that. But when it comes to COVID-19, who's going to be liable if someone comes down with this because of their exposure in one of these professional contests? Are you going to be able to insure your facility so that you can open it and take on this liability? And I know there's people on this podcast that know more about insurance than I do, but I know that that's a big part of everything. If they won't underwrite it, it won't happen.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I would also add, Brandon, you were talking about all the testing associated with the UFC match that recently happened, but you think about an NFL roster versus a UFC match. You're talking about mano y mano, and then you're talking about maybe 4 or 5 matches maximum. So you're talking about 10 people that are actually the players. Yeah, and there's the ancillary people that are around as well that stand that event up as well. But you're talking about an NFL roster, 53-man roster times 2 times all the people that
coaching
have to
staff and everything.
Oh, absolutely, that have to stand that up as well. And you're talking about people that are on these coaching staffs that are some of the most vulnerable people too, from an age standpoint. Mm-hmm. So there's just a lot to think about. With regard
I
to
totally hear you. I would say, and you observe, you take notes, and you apply what you can apply. So it's in principle, like they may not be able to do it exactly how the UFC has done it, but maybe they can take a few tidbits from it and apply it to their standard.
Sure.
As far as the NFL, and NFL makes more money than the UFC. I think they're valued at over $10 billion as far as what they're worth. So maybe they could step it up monetarily to be able to facilitate what needs to be facilitated, but maybe they could use the positives that came out of a successful UFC event. And they had another UFC event last night, I believe. Every Saturday they have something. So just to kind of take the positives from that. And of course, you get rid of the negatives that say don't apply to your organization, and that's what I was seeing. I think, basically my point was you had a major sporting organization that broke the glass ceiling of the COVID virus and had the confidence and the gusto and the smarts to put it out there. And it was a successful broadcast. And then it's like, okay,
sure, now
let's learn from this.
Sure.
And they also can set, an example for all of the sports organizations that they can kind of take. Well,
I would say a better comparison is the European Soccer League, which, again, I'm not a fan, but I have heard that they are opening with stadiums without fans, and that's probably a better comparison. And
have they done so far?
Say again.
Have they done so far? Have they had a game yet?
I believe so. I think I got a couple of alerts where that's happening, and I would also address Kyle's concern in terms of the insurance being able to insure these sporting events.
Yep.
I mean, they've already a couple of these sporting events have already put in claims. I think either Wimbledon or the U.S. Open already put a claim in for not being able to for their event being canceled. And I think one of them received like $57 million.
It was Wimbledon, and it was like a $42 million payout off of a $2 million policy.
Off of what?
It was like I think they paid like over 4 years. They paid like $2 million total in catastrophe and pandemic insurance. So that's like the only sporting event that I've heard of so far that's been covered where they actually made money. Yeah,
right.
They're going to be fine.
Yes, they're Wimbledon.
Sure.
All right. Well, I mean,
Wimbledon.
Wimbledon. It's tennis.
Jolly good.
I guess it equates more with, say, the UFC example that I gave, but like the more professional organizations that are able to kind of just push through, the better it is for other organizations to take what works and apply it to themselves, and then whatever wouldn't work, to kind of discard it. You know what I mean? So you're learning from other people taking those. I don't want to use the word risk but they're educated risks, and they're trying. They're trying.
And the thing about it too is the football is going to be the last sporting event that's going to have to take place. So you're talking about still may having discussions about basketball, and baseball is already up to a half a season, 82 games.
I think they're done.
For what, baseball?
Yes,
basketball.
And basketball. I don't think we're going to see football or basketball for the rest. I'm sorry. I don't think we're going to see basketball or baseball for the rest of 2020.
I think you're going to see both of them, but it's just going to look a whole lot different. I think there's a lot invested. When both sides want to make it happen, I think it's going to happen, but it's just going to look a whole lot different from what we're normally accustomed to those sports looking like.
Well, it's going to have to happen.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember, but like back in the 90s, Siena College had it was like a chickenpox outbreak or some one of those things. Maybe it was something that didn't have a vaccine, and they had to play all their games in empty gyms. And it was like an interesting like few weeks that they had to quarantine everybody and not have them play. Before we move on to the next thing, I'm going to throw out a would you rather. Would you rather see the Wimbledon people fight the UFC people in mixed martial arts, or the UFC guys play the Wimbledon guys in tennis?
I'm always down to see a fight. I'm going with the fight.
Yeah, I'm going with the fight too, baby. All day. It's
probably the fight.
Jolly good. We'll get Michael Bisping versus Andy Roddick.
Yeah.
and then tennis.
Oh yes, and tennis guy would be like,
wow, Brandon. Where were you going with that?
Did you say bippity bop?
Bippity boppity boo.
I was going bippity boppity boo. Blah 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 blah. I'm from the UK. Well, you know what? All the tennis people are going to be like, since they're trained in that discipline, can we use our rackets because we're trained in and the UFC guys will still win.
That's the whole thing's a racket.
It's a big racket. All right, so let's move on to this next racket.
Yeah.
That was a terrible segue, but I went for it anyway.
Horrible.
So guys, yeah, man. You know what? Basically, what's the latest now? The latest news since the draft. I mean, the excitement of the draft has died down. We can kind of like, as Brian likes to say, that I love to say, unpack things. But what is the biggest set of news? I mean, for me, the prospect of potentially signing Logan Ryan, that's big news for me as a Jets fan. And also Larry Walford being cut by the Saints, who was a Pro Bowler three times in a row. And we know that we need offensive line help. I mean, these are big things as far as being a Jets fan and the Jets organization that has happened since the draft that we should be able to, kind of analyze and see what's up. Anything else?
Well, would you want to? My question for those two things that you propose is: would you rather pay Logan Ryan $10 million for 1 year, or pay Wolford say 17 over 2?
I'd pay him 17 over 2 because I want to add more stability and to my offensive line so that my quarterback can just keep on developing. Man, he is our franchise. I'm always willing to invest in my quarterback first.
My question would be, why was he released? Why would you release an All-Pro?
They have cap challenges in New Orleans.
And that's all it is? That's all it is?
Yeah, I mean, they drafted his replacement, basically. They drafted his replacement. They have cap challenges there.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's really, at the end of the day, why they, and again, they've had a good offensive line for a while. They're not
top
in the
five.
position. Yeah, so they're not in the position we are. They're like, hey, if we can lose a tire and then replace it, and we still have the other four doing pretty well, I think that they just felt like they were in a good position with a lineman that is headed to his downturn, right? Based on age, potentially.
No.
I mean, listen. I mean, compared to the guy they drafted.
No, I still disagree.
Oh, okay.
I still disagree.
You haven't, Brandon. How can you disagree? You haven't even seen him on an everyday basis.
Seen who on an everyday?
We're just going on reputation.
Well, I mean, do we sit here and examine all 1,200 players in the NFL? We can't physically possibly do that. But reputation, no. I'm going off of his stat. He made 3 Pro Bowls in a row, and it wasn't like 5 years ago. He made it last year, the year before, and the year before that. The New Orleans Saints,
we're sure there aren't any injury concerns.
It has not come up in anything that I've read in any of the reports.
Me neither.
And I've also read that basically it is much easier to replace a guard than it is an offensive tackle and your center. Okay, so they had basically sometimes you got to make the tough cuts, and the tough cut was, all right, we drafted Cesar Ruiz. This guy's costing us $7 million. And it's known that the Saints are basically hamstrung by the salary cap this year and even last year. They just re-signed Drew Brees as well, So they were hamstrung, and so then they got his replacement in Cesar Ruiz out of Michigan, a highly touted center/guard. And it's like, sorry, Walford, we love you, but we got to get rid of you. And plus, we're not going to hit any negative cap space by getting rid of you the way that your contract is constructed. So they had to make the tough cut, and I want to capitalize off of that.
Just for some stats, Wofford, he started 14 games in 2017, 15 in 2018, and 15 in 2019.
I'll take that.
Yeah, Pro Football Focus score of 73.1, which is pretty darn good.
Yeah.
2 sacks allowed last year as well. And to your point, Brandon, I didn't think that. So will he make All-Pro next year? Who knows? I mean, number one, I'm with you too. I'm on your side. I think that is the person that you would sign versus Ryan. He's been an All-Pro recently. Ryan has not necessarily been an All-Pro, although he's played well.
Has Walford been an All-Pro or just a Pro Bowler?
Oh, Pro Bowler probably.
Okay.
Bowler. Yeah.
He was first team All-Pro at no point in his career.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So,
he did make 3 Pro Bowlers.
Yeah.
He made 3 Pro Bowls.
I'll take it.
And he's 29, no?
Yeah, I think he's 28.
Going on 29.
He's 28, but it's going to be his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, his 8th year in the league.
This is
so
the year. If you're 28, that's prime territory, and then you can extend it a little bit if you're an O lineman. It's not like he's a running back.
See, I think that the big question here is, first of all, in the stock car that is the NFL, you have two kinds of deals on your salary cap. You're either overpaying or somebody's being underpaid. And the underpayment may come from some sort of sweetheart deal like Tom Brady was giving the Patriots for years and years and years, where you could keep a player of higher value for a lower price, maybe with some guaranteed money and stuff like that. But I think, I kind of fall in between the conversation here, where I think that Larry over here was cut because his salary cap number was not feasible based on the situation of the New Orleans Saints. It's not because of a decline in play. It's not because of an injury concern. It's a straight up numbers thing, in my opinion.
Sure, absolutely.
I think that one of the people that could be a similar comp would be like an Avery Williamson. All the manage the cap things that we did in the spring.
I think Kerry wants to say something.
In the winter. Kerry, what do you want to say?
I don't even want to say his name because I want him to stay on this roster.
Avery Williams.
Avery.
Yeah.
So
That's kind of what I was getting at. Is like every sim that I did with the cap, I always never cut him June 1st.
sure.
I always kept him because I think he has an insane amount of value on our defense. That's worth the $6.5 million that you'd save if you cut him.
But why are we even having that debate as far as either or? Because what do we have? We have Tremaine Johnson, which is going to come off.
11 million will come
That's
off.
11 million, right?
Yeah.
And we also have Winters, which then you're swapping Warford out for Winters, which is a no-brainer in my book,
7.28.
right?
We had the conversation. We had the conversation during the week about whether or not you could even sign Wofford right now, based on the fact that do you have enough salary cap money to do so? And if you have to reserve that $11 million and you have $14 million of salary cap space, I think you can agree to something in principle, which we wouldn't necessarily know about.
But Kyle, you can just cut Winters outright. I don't think there's any, dead money left on his deal at all that you have to make it a June 1st cut.
You're right, Brian. You don't have to.
You don't have to. You just
there's no dead money. There's no dead money.
No.
I thought we've known that since the beginning of the cycle.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I don't think right. It was never Avery for the New Orleans guard. It was just cut Winters, sign New Orleans.
Easy. Easy decision there in my book. So why it's not happening is probably a bigger question. And we've spent a lot of capital in the draft as well as in free agency on the offensive line. We already have a guard that we have slotted to start. Maybe that's what, our GM is thinking, Douglas is thinking, that, I want to allow this offensive line to have its day and then kind of take it from there. I mean,
who do you think our GM would rather sign, Logan Ryan or Larry?
For value?
No, I'm just saying, like, if you had to guess, who would he rather sign at his price?
Probably Ryan because of the need. I'm thinking Ryan because of the need. We need a cornerback more at this point in time on the outside than we need a guard. Can we agree on that?
Because I agree with you.
I probably agree.
I agree too because I feel like he's done. But
that price tag of $10 million is a lot.
That's why he's not signed.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we can agree on that too. If 10 million was it and it gets the deal done, he's signed already. So.
Well, that's why I posed the question: 10 million for Ryan as opposed to 17 million over 2 for Wolford, right? So, I'm not doing Ryan for $10 million. So my choice would be Wolford for 2 for 17. Now, if he comes and says 8 this year and 8 next year, I might have to consider that.
And you know what? I agree with Kerry because Kyle asked us to play like if you were the GM, if you were Joe Douglas, what do you think he would do? And I think he would do what Brian and Kyle just said. But if I were the GM, I think Kerry and I are on the same page. Like I said, I'm always going to go for building up my quarterback first and getting that O-line straightened out and me feeling good about it. That's what it is.
I don't think any of us want to sign Logan Ryan for 1 year for $10 million.
No.
Nah.
I mean, 9. If we want to split the difference, I mean, I might. But if you're gonna sign it for 9, what difference does it make? If he's gonna improve your cornerback room, your secondary, to that degree, and I think he would. I mean, I might even pay him the 10 at this point in time. But I think Douglas is trying to wait for his number, and that's what he's been. He's been consistent about that.
Right. He's been consistent.
Do you sign Logan Ryan for $18 million for 2?
I'd sign him 10 million for 1 versus 18 for 2. To be honest with you, I'd rather see how he's going to gel with this team and pay him a little extra for that than to pay him 2 years. Not knowing we have some young corners too. Let's be honest. I think we have some young corners that could potentially take the reign on the outside. We just don't know what we have until we put them out on the field.
Yeah, Joe Douglas has been good at these 2-year and 3-year deals that are really
Right.
1 year
Well,
deals, right?
2-year deals. So maybe do something like that. Maybe you front load it a little bit. We've all played around with this a little bit. We know what it takes to get somebody signed. I can't believe how much it would take to get Jordan Jenkins signed in Sims,
Right, minimum.
and how much that number wound up being.
Oh man,
Right.
it's like a bag
You
of
know, like
bag of used
like a
baseballs, right?
magician.
Like I said in
He's,
the
like,
chat.
he's like a magician when it comes to that.
we got him for less than $1 million a sack.
Wow.
He must have promised him like a bag of Twizzlers for life or something. I don't know.
The big Costco one, like the one
Right.
that you get and you put in the closet.
Right,
Everybody
has
that
its
ever
own-
had a
has its own
BJ's or a
handle, has its own
Costco
carry
membership.
handle.
Or do we just value the player, on a team that maybe obviously the league didn't value him that much. Otherwise he'd be gone.
But if he was a pass rusher, he would have been higher valued. He's a run stopper with 8 sacks a year. That's what he is.
Well, 8 sacks this year, 8 sacks last year, not consistently 8 sacks every year.
I think that
It's
he's going to
up
be.
consistently
I think he's
every
going to
year.
be an 8 to 10 sacks a year guy. Probably that's his ceiling. I don't think
totally
he's
Yeah,
gonna
but that's based on what that's based on what you've seen on television, and you're looking at him constantly. You know what I mean? And analyzing him on podcasts. That's not what he has consistently done.
But
Yeah,
what
but
he
you know-
has consistently done is going up each year in his sack total. To me, he reminds me of Calvin Pace, a more modern day Calvin Pace. And I will take that consistency. Now we just need to try to get another
I agree, Brandon.
splash.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, the better the guy is the better the guy is on the other side of him, it's going to have two effects. It's either going to up his sack total because there's going to be added need
Attention.
to protect on the other side,
Yep.
added
Right.
attention,
Yep.
Focus.
or you're going to get a really high sack total on the other side, and you're going to get a more pedestrian one from him. Either one is okay. Especially based on the money we're paying him. He doesn't really need to be a double-digit sack guy if the other person is a double-digit sack person.
We don't have that other person. That's the issue.
Well,
Well,
do
we
we
may.
do we
We
not?
may. We may.
They hope the Spaceball is that guy.
Yeah.
Spaceball meaning Zuniga. Daphne Zuniga was Princess Vespa in Spaceballs. Therefore,
Wow.
he's the Spaceball.
I'm glad you explained that reference because
You
I
had
didn't
to
get it.
connect it.
Yeah. I got you.
Nobody else knew what the hell he was talking about.
He's the Spaceball.
I love
So
it.
now,
I love
so
it.
now that I've set the record straight on that,
Nice. I'm sure
because
we're
I've
gonna
been
get.
referring to him a lot in the text thread as.
I'm
the
sure
Spaceball.
we're gonna get some commentary either on YouTube or live right now with the whole Spaceballs reference, and it makes complete and utter sense, and I love it. That's fantastic. Oh man. Go ahead.
So all right, so we're gonna cut Tremaine Johnson. Goes
Sure.
without saying, right?
With a quickness.
His bags are packed. He has like the Turk is waiting for him to get the iPad back with the playbook on.
Totally.
He's gonna get cut. The Winters one is a real question mark because it all is gonna. He's not getting cut unless there is
Right.
somebody
And that's the
else
part
coming
I
in.
don't understand why not. He should be cut. Cut him.
Well, I mean, because
I've been a fan of his for a while.
Well, he provides depth at this point in time. So if you cut him, who's the next man up at this point? You have somebody who has starting experience in the league that you are now pushing to the second tier, which is where ultimately he should have been the last few years, Brandon. So I don't disagree with you from a performance standpoint, but I think, long term, what Douglas wanted to do is to create a starting 5 and then have a deep bench. And right now, we didn't have a starting 5 or a deep bench.
Right.
Right.
But I feel like now we do because I'm gonna give it to you right now. Let's just say we want to cut him and we get Walford out of New Orleans.
Oh, I don't disagree with you with that. I was just
Right.
saying, as it stands right now, that you hold on to him until you find a replacement that is better than him. And we all agree here that Walford is better, and we take him in a heartbeat.
Let's take Walford out of the equation.
Okay.
I am confident with Roten, who they signed. You know, Long Island.
Starter.
He represents Long Island.
He's a starter.
As a starter.
Yep.
At the right guard.
Okay.
Right tackle moving over.
George Fant.
Yep, George Fant to the right tackle. So we have right tackle George Fant, right guard Roten,
right
center McGovern, Alex Lewis.
Yep.
I have full confidence in Alex Lewis. He's already played well his audition year, which garnered him a new contract.
Yep.
At the left guard. And then our first draft pick, our first round draft pick, you know?
Yeah. Well, when the injury happens, who's the next man up?
The next man up, as far as a guard, the backup guard that we got from the Colts that was given high numbers. Tackle is our third round pick from last year out of USC that already has like 6 or 7 games that he's already started. I actually would like to move him to guard. He's got a guard body type. He's only 6'3", playing tackle. He played well at times, but also he fell off a cliff at times too. But it was a rookie season for him. But I would like to see him and his build in at guard, giving me that depth. We have depth at the center because we kept Harrison. And then tackles, another like a third tackle, a swing tackle. We have
McDermott. There's a guy named McDermott that's on the squad. And also you got that rookie guard that from Charlotte.
He's a tackle. He's a tackle, but played guard.
But
so
that's
but he projects his guard. He projects his guard.
That's Makai's guy, like the guy that he trains with. So I think they envision the development of that guy to be that left side of the line.
Left guard, right.
But
right.
When
he's got a nasty disposition.
Yeah. Well, when you're talking about starting experience, though, somebody who knows the system, I mean, you have Winters that you can. Yeah, knows the NFL. You can plug Winters in there. I don't want to apologize for him. I feel like it, Gase and Kyle or something like that. I don't want to, put him out there and oversell it. But I just think to have a person like Winters that played hurt last year, that is serviceable for a couple of games with a better foursome out there alongside him, then I feel like, I see why he's still on the team until Warford became available. Right now I don't see why he's on the team still.
Listen, I'd much rather pay $8.7 million a year for Larry Warford than I would 7 point whatever.
Totally agree.
I think it's for Brian Winters.
Totally agree.
He is Winters. Where are you?
I think he's the same age too.
7.3 million. So if that's the case, I'd rather have Warford at $1 million more a year.
No question.
It's still like, you look at our linemen, we're going to have only really one lineman that is a double-digit million guy. And that's going to be McGovern and then whatever Becton signs for, which I don't think it's not over $10 million in the first year. But McGovern is he is a looking at it right now. He's a $7.3 million cap number. And that's before we sign back, then that's our highest paid guy.
That's a Brian Winters cap number.
And Winters is the same.
Yeah.
So so just for that reason alone, you don't want to pay Brian Winters that much money unless he's starting for you. And the current thing that you just said, Brandon, was Alex Lewis at guard and Van Rotten at guard. So if that's the case, then Brian Winters is your next guard in at a cap number that's more than starters. And that doesn't make sense.
Well, again, what I
much better off with Lewis as the next guy in.
What I believe is going on is what I said was the theme of the draft was versatility and depth. What we did not have last year, building a core, whether that's the cornerback core, whether that is the offensive line core, whether it's the receiving core, whether it's the quarterback core, that has the depth that we did not have last year. Once the man went down, then, the whole offensive line was in disarray. Once, a cornerback went down, then the whole defensive backfield was in disarray.
Sure.
He has built a a team that is less concerned with that because of the individuals that he has brought in. And if you bring somebody in like Wolford, then that just solidifies that group in terms of if somebody goes down, it's the next man up.
Uh-huh.
Yep. You've done that with the safeties too. And I know that was out there. We didn't mention the whole news about Marcus May and potentially not re-signing him based on the draft pick that we had in the safety room. So
not re-signing him, trading him, right?
Oh yeah, the
Right,
trade piece
trading
too. Yeah, potentially
Yep.
trading him, which I don't think is a good idea right now. I don't think that's a good idea at all.
No, I don't. But I understand what they're trying to do in anticipation of not being able to sign him and letting him.
What about
go for
in
nothing.
anticipation of not being able to play this year? So let me give you this scenario. You don't trade Marcus May. You don't play a season this year, and then he's a free agent.
Wow.
How are you gonna? I mean, you're not gonna get any value for that. So I think the trade talk is more about 2 years from now than it is next year. So if you
but the issue is that you trade him, that individual, the team that you trade him to is going to have the same situation. They traded for somebody who is not going to play for them and is going to leave at the end of the season.
that ain't our problem. That's theirs.
Yeah, but I understand that. But my point is that you're not selling me a bag of rocks, and I'm asking for a bag of diamonds.
Well, no, but I mean, Kerry.
Hey, before you sell me a bag of
they're gonna make that
rocks,
trade, they're gonna sign an extension.
Yeah, that could be part of the trade
That
conversation
could be
as well.
part of it, yeah.
But you
Yeah,
don't
that
know
could be
what you have in Davis yet. So you don't know what you have in your draft pick. So to me, I don't think it's a good time to do it. If you get through training camp and this guy is outplaying May, or if he's equal to what May is bringing to the table, then I think that's an option to be able to do that,
Davis
or within the first couple of games of the season.
Davis is either Chuck Cecil or Willie Galt.
Willie Galt.
I'm not even going to address that. I won't address it. I will not.
Hey,
But what I will say is,
Uh-huh.
what Davis has is the versatility, which is what I talked about earlier, in that he can play a corner, he can play a nickel, he has the speed to return kicks, he has the speed to be a ball hog and take it back for 6 points, which we haven't really had. Again, now I know that who are we talking about? Who's the second?
Marcus May.
Marcus May.
Marcus May has, to me, he has played very well.
When he's been in the lineup. When he's been in the lineup.
When he's in the lineup.
Yep.
Yes, when he's in the lineup. And I think he's erased. The problem with what people see on the television is that he's in the frame when a play breaks down. And that's because he's there to clean up everybody else's mistakes, as a free safety. And if he's in the frame, then to me, he's where he is supposed to be.
Well, I think this is more about the contract that you're going to have to give Jamal Adams.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really more about that than it is anything else, because you're not going to pay two of those safeties big money, and the fact that and it speaks to the fact that you have more control. You see how the draft and the rookie contracts kind of work out. Both of them were drafted together in the same draft. You have an extra year on the first round draft pick on that contract than you do on the second round draft pick. And Marcus May's money is coming due a year early, and Jamal Adams wants his money a year early. So those two things and priorities are colliding just at the same time, and you can't do both. You just can't spend big money on two safeties. Just doesn't make sense in today's NFL.
Well, if we're looking at the salary cap a year from now, we're not even talking about whether we keep Avery Williamson, because you got to cut Avery Williamson to have the money to keep May and Adams. But right now, if you don't go the route of signing Logan Ryan, or you can sign Logan Ryan for less money, you might be able to take some of that savings that you have on the on the Tremaine Johnson cut and apply that to an extension for Adams. Like, if you don't sign Logan Ryan, I would look to re-sign Jamal Adams right now, preseason, to an extension, with that in mind.
They're going to be saving $11 million after June 1st on Tremaine Johnson, and next year they'll be saving $3 million because the new some new I don't know, for lack of a better term, law or whatever, in the NFL has allowed for that to happen. So so that's why, you know, it's so important for us to kind of cut him when we cut him, and we can reap benefits not just this year but next year.
Right now, we only have 4 players on the roster that make over $10 million a year.
Well, it's coming soon, though. You got Sam Darnold, his 5th year is 2022. So when you think about the decision that we're going to have to make on his contract in 2021, huge.
I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to pick up this 5th-year option. That's going to happen.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I mean,
what year does CJ Mosley, what year does his contract go through?
I think it was a 4 or 5 year deal.
I think it's 2028.
But I think we'll have some money that won't count on the cap, or nearly as much. This year was his first year after the 2021 season. I think
he's the highest paid player on our team.
And he's the highest paid, and he's the highest paid inside linebacker in the league. $85 million contract. Inside linebacker.
And Le'Veon Bell is the second highest paid.
Highest paid, on our team. And then Donald's third, right?
No, the third is Tremaine Johnson. So when you cut Tremaine Johnson, his cap number is $15 million a year.
Yeah.
For nothing. We get nothing from him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, I don't even want to get mad about it. I can't even get mad about it right now.
So CJ Mosley, his contract is up in 2023, but the dead cap money in 2022, if you cut him, is $3 million, and the dead cap in 2021 is 12.5. So yeah, good point of bringing that up, Kyle, because they're gonna have to make that decision 2022. If we sign Darnold to a big contract and CJ Mosley, we're gonna have to restructure, or he's gonna get cut. That's basically what's gonna happen.
I wouldn't have a problem with taking Jamal Adams' $7.1 million contract, getting rid of, I know you're not going to have an equal value thing, but you get the $15 million off the books for Tremaine Johnson, and it becomes 11 or whatever that you get off. But making Jamal Adams' contract a $12.5 million contract per year, a $12.5 million cap number, where you could get some longevity out of that. Do you think that he would be okay with $12.5 million a year?
As long as he's the highest paid safety, I think he'd be okay. I don't know
who is the highest paid safety.
Right. Who is the highest paid safety?
It's a good question. And I think he would be happy with that because safeties aren't paid as much as, say, cornerbacks or outside pass rushers or left tackles. I think that would be at the top of what a safety would get.
Especially because he's not just a safety; he's a linebacker, a safety, and a pass rusher.
Right.
So you got Eddie Jackson at 14.6. So I would say no.
Will he be? Will Eddie Jackson be gainfully employed at 14.6 after June 1st?
Yes.
He's
for the Bears.
Eddie?
For the Bears safety. Oh yeah, he just signed that contract, I think, last year.
Yeah,
how old is he?
I remember that because I remember Jamal Adams tweeting something out as a result. I do remember that.
Do you know what that says to me though?
What?
That says to me that 12.5 is his franchise tender. If you franchise him.
Sure. Eddie Jackson is 26 years old.
Yeah, so if you say to Jamal Adams, all right, we're too far apart, like the Dak Prescott thing right now, and then you franchise him. If Eddie Jackson is at 14.7, then 12.5 sounds like the average of the top 5.
Yeah. I mean, it does, but what does that message send to the best player on your team?
That right there, if the Jets do that, it's just an appeasement measure, just to hold on to him so that it'll give them enough time to really hammer out something. If they're still interested in Jamal Adams and consider him highly valuable, which I hope that they do think that. Like he's the only person, not even Darnold yet, but he's the only person on that team that gives the Jets an identity. Kind of like how Rex Ryan gave the Jets an identity, and I've been speaking about this a lot. I want my team to have an identity. It could be defensive, it could be offensive, whatever, but we have just remained in limbo without an identity for so many years, and Jamal Adams brings that. Like, give my team an identity with some purpose so that when you come into our house or we go to yours, you are expecting something, and hopefully that something is a good punch in the mouth.
So Jamal Adams is way down on the list as far as highest paid, but when you look at
he's on a rookie deal. That's why.
Yeah. If you look at the top 5, the lowest of the top 5 is 13.7.
Yep.
So I'm incorrect on that. You would be more along the lines of 14 million a year with a franchise tag. So you're going to have to pay. You're going to have to pay Jamal Adams 14.711111111. But you're going to have to pay him $1 more than Eddie Jackson.
Sure. And you know how many years? Probably going to look for a 5-year deal with 3 of those years being fully guaranteed. So let's multiply 14 times. He's probably going to look for
45 million. So you're talking about
like 45 million
guaranteed?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, what you're not going to have is Marcus May and Jamal Adams making $15 million a year.
Exactly.
So your question is, and this is what I think that Brian kind of brought up in the text thing is, Marcus May has a better PFF number than Jamal Adams, correct?
For what he does.
As a safety.
They have totally different roles.
Right. As a safety, though, he is up there. Now, the problem with these safety contracts here is there's no determination between a strong safety and a free safety.
Right.
Just safeties.
Which is purposefully done so that they can keep the price down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how Le'Veon Bell, and Kerry's commented on this a ton of times, he's basically like a top 5 slot receiver and a top 5 running back, but they're just going to categorize him as a running back. And that's why it took so long to kind of get him in there, because he's one of the best receivers and running backs in the National Football League. Hey, listen, before we move on, I just want to shout out a few people who are on with us right now, checking us out. My man, Rich Smalls. Todd Perry is checking us out right now.
What up, cuz?
TP.
We've got Ed Heller. He shouted you out, Kyle. We've got
you shouted out my lack of a mustache? Or
my girl Carmen D. Boyer is watching right now. Steve Levy, go Bruins.
Yeah.
He's watching us right now.
What up, Steve?
Free kick, Long Beach.
Hey, Kyle, I thought you cut your mustache so you could go to the precinct and bail out Ed Oliver.
Yeah.
Hello.
Wait,
what happened to Ed Oliver?
Hello.
Get that camera on Kerry.
I was going to bring it up. That's funny.
Okay. Yeah. So I haven't been really watching the news lately. Tell me what happened with Ed Oliver.
Yeah. Potential.
Is it worse than
DWI and gun charge potentially,
and gun
my friend.
possession.
Yes.
Don't tell me he was in Florida.
Probably.
I don't know.
These things love happening in Florida. You hear about the Giants cornerback and
the two of them.
Yeah, 2 of them, and the other cornerback in Seattle, in Miramar. Man, they're both locked up in Miramar. They're gonna be going.
They were trying to rob Top Gun.
That's bogus though. They were at a card game at somebody's house, and somebody was cheating at cards, and they just took the pot. Whatever.
I'm not making any comments on it. I'm just saying, like, Florida. Gee whiz, Florida. Daggone.
Everything happens in Florida, man.
I know.
I went to Florida. I had a nice time, man. I don't even know what you guys are talking about.
I like the Gulf side of Florida.
I had a great time.
I'm more on the Gulf side. I'll take the Gulf side.
When I have a conversation with Ed Oliver, I'm going to say, come on, man, why are you making me look bad? I've been singing your praises for,
Well, you don't know when I got that alert on my phone. You don't know the smile that was on my face when I was like, "Oh, I can't wait to bring this up."
Oh, I love how you Easter egged it and never mentioned it in the text chat, and then just threw it out me unawares.
Funny.
No pre-production on that one.
No, not at all. Not at all.
No.
Hey, Kyle. Speaking of egging someone, didn't we egg someone that played for Freeport back in the day? Quarterback.
Yeah, I know. I neither confirm nor deny.
He lived close to us, Brian. He lived close to us. I'm not even going to shout out his name, but we served him up
on Brookside. On Brookside.
On Brookside, yeah.
On the other side of Seaman.
On the other side of Seaman.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
His initials it may have been KP, but that could be Kathy Perman too.
That's true. But we love Kathy Perman. Big hug to Kathy Perman. All day. Hey, by the way, we have my old college teammate Patrick Clark is watching us. What's up, Patrick? How you doing? And happy birthday! I just wish you and your brother a happy birthday, man. And we've got a Matt Heiniger who's watching us right now as well. So thank all of you for watching and supporting and commenting on our show and everything, man. This is awesome. It feels good. I mean, listen, to be able to do this while we're still basically kind of quarantined and everything, it just still feels good. I hope it brightens up everyone's day. And you know what, guys? That's our time on the BKBK podcast. Woo. So thanks for watching another episode of the podcast. We want to be able to keep bringing you the latest news and viewpoints of where sports and the culture collide, and the New York Jets reign supreme. So keep watching. You can find us on Facebook on our BKBK Podcast fan page. Find us on Twitter on @BKBK Podcast, Instagram @BKBK Podcast, as well as on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, just type in BKBK Podcast. Please hit the like and the subscribe button to show the love. And if you can't watch us, you can listen to us on iTunes. Go to bkbkpodcast.podomatic.com. All right, B, you know what to do, man. Cue it up. That's it. And let's go Jets. Let's go Baldwin Bruins, all right? And let's go Team BKBK. I just want to congratulate all my Baldwin graduates that are coming up. I'm sorry you guys can't, go to the prom or whatever, but I'm sure some kind of contingency will be made. But love and respect to all my Baldwin Bruins. All righty.
Yeah, my son is one of those graduates. He is actually, I want to talk to you guys about that, but quickly, he is contemplating going to the University at Albany and maybe even trying to walk on the football team. So we'll see. I'll keep you guys up to date with that.
That's what's up.
By the way, Kerry, watch out. That school is known to be a party school, so keep an eye on your boy.
Hush your mouth, man.
Congrats, Aaron. Congrats, Aaron.
What school is it?
Yeah,
that's true. Very true. All right, here we go.
Yeah.
Love you all out there, man. Stay safe, everybody.
That's right.